Yo, what's good, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. Today we have our official 6.0 NFL mock draft. It's our first one of the NFL offseason, which is crazy to say because this season has gone by quick. So I guess this is like my first official one with the new draft order. Obviously, the Chiefs at 32, beating the 49ers. I did record my prediction video. I was going to post it, but I lost the file to it, so was not able to post the video. Some might not believe me, but I did have the Chiefs winning. I think I had them winning by like 8 points, so I wasn't as close as the actual score. Mahomes, another Super Bowl MVP. He had an amazing game. Overall, takeaway from that game, I mean, there's not much. I think the Chiefs just played a better game. It was nice to see the Chiefs actually win a Super Bowl without any controversies. Because obviously last year we had that holding. Where the Eagles defensive back was flagged for a holding penalty on one of the last plays of the game. And then, if anything, this game, the refs were kind of against the Chiefs. I thought there was a couple spottings of the ball where probably should have been a first down, but the refs moved it back just a little bit. So I think we can just jump right into this mock draft. First one of the offseason. Should be exciting. With my first overall pick in this mock draft, the Bears have kind of went out and said they're not looking to trade the first overall pick unless it's a crazy haul, which leads me to believe it's going to be Caleb Williams. Bears have also said that they could be thinking about keeping Justin Fields until training camp, then maybe deciding their starting quarterback or their week one quarterback during training camp, which I think is interesting. I think just trade Justin Fields in this mock draft. I'm hypothetically going to be trading Justin Fields to the I'm going to trade him to it's either going to be the Falcons or the Steelers. I'm going to trade him to the Falcons. Let's say a third round pick and then another day 2 or 3 pick. Or day 3 pick. I really don't care. All that matters is Justin Fields is a Falcon now, and Caleb Williams is the first overall pick to the Chicago Bears. At the second overall pick, we have the Washington Commanders, and I'm going to do something I haven't done yet in my mock drafts. Instead of giving them Drake May like I usually do, I'm actually going to go with the LSU quarterback, the Heisman winner, Jayden Daniels. Daniels pretty easily is the most versatile quarterback in this draft class. Just last year, we saw him rush for an insane 1,134 yards. Overall, he's a great prospect. He's a little bit on the older side, but overall, an amazing prospect. Heisman winner. He 100% deserved it. If there's one thing I want to take away from this game that he could probably get better at, is probably his vision on mid-field routes, across the middle mostly. But other than that, Jayden Daniels is an amazing football or quarterback prospect in general, and I'm going to be interested to see how he works with this Commanders offense. New head coach Dan Quinn. At 3, we have the Patriots. They have went out and said, or I think it was both the Patriots and Mac Jones have said, they're looking for new starts. So that's 100% a quarterback. It's going to be Drake May. If Jayden Daniels was available at 3-2, it would have been Jayden Daniels. They're going quarterback with this pick. It just makes the most sense. Drake May can go to probably not 1 at this point, even though some people were saying that earlier this season. But I think at most, May can go to. The farthest I could see him slip is probably 5 or 6. 5, just because, okay, the Patriots could take a wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr., and then I think at that point, teams are going to try to trade up with the Chargers at 5 because realistically, the Chargers can either trade down with the Giants at 6, still get Brock Bowers, or even trade down to the Falcons at 8 and still get Brock Bowers, assuming that the Falcons and Giants are going to be the two teams trying to trade up for Drake May. At 4, easiest pick in the draft, it's Marvin Harrison Jr. Not much I can say about that one. At 5, in my opinion, it should be another easy pick in the draft. Some people might want to say Malik Neighbors, maybe Olafishanu, Joe Alt, Roma Dunze maybe if you like him more than Neighbors. But I'm going Brock Bowers. I think it's an easy pick. They need a tight end 1. Gerald Everett is not the answer, and Brock Bowers is a generational tight end talent. At 6, I'm going to have the Giants take Malik Neighbors out of LSU. There's some scouts or NFL scouts that believe Neighbors is the better prospect than Marvin Harrison Jr. Harrison Jr. did win the Biletnikoff Award, which I do not agree. Biletnikoff Award is the nation's best wide receiver last year for college football. I think it should have went to Neighbors and maybe even Roma Dunze over Marvin Harrison Jr. because that award's not for who's the best college or who's the best NFL prospect. It's for who's the best college football wide receiver. And in that case, I think Neighbors or Dunze both should have had it over Marvin Harrison Jr. At 7, we have the Titans. Like the other picks, like the last 3 picks, I think this is also an easy pick. I'm going to give them Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. It's just a better fit with him and Skoronski than the fit with Olu-Fashanu and Skoronski. And at this point, I think it's near consensus that Joe Alt is the better offensive line prospect than Olu-Fashanu. Potential-wise, I probably would lean a little bit Fashanu, but when we talk about who's going to come to the NFL ready, it probably is Joe Alt. At 8, we have the Falcons. This is going to be edge for me. My 1A and 1B edges in this draft class are Dallas Turner and Jared Verse, so it's going to be one of them. I'm going to lean Dallas Turner, though. I think he fits into the Falcons' defense a little bit better than what Jared Verse would bring, but I don't really see Jared Verse falling out of this top 14. The lowest he can go probably is the Saints or maybe the Colts, but Jared Verse is a great prospect. I'm just going to lean Dallas Turner in this scenario. At 9, we have the Bears. I'm going to give them wide receiver here, Rome Odunze. Don't make the bad mistake in not giving Caleb Williams a wide receiver threat or a receiving threat, just like you did with Justin Fields. Justin Fields' first 2 years of being a starting quarterback or quarterback for their team did not have a wide receiver one. I mean, it was Darnell Mooney. And then last year, when they finally got him one in DJ Moore, Justin Fields had the greatest season of his career. Now they decided to move on from him. Probably not the right idea, but it's the one that looks like it's going to happen the most. So don't make that same mistake, and let's go get him a wide receiver one type player early in Rome Odunze. Keep in mind, they still have DJ Moore as well. So Caleb Williams will most likely be in good hands when he arrives in Chicago. At 10, we have the Jets. I think this is pretty easily offensive line. Either Olu-Fashanu or Talisi Fuega. I think at the end of the day, I'm going to lean Olu-Fashanu out of Penn State. But like I've heard from Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr., some people are saying that Fuega is the better prospect and will go ahead of Olu-Fashanu in this draft. Personally, me, Olu-Fashanu is my number 1 offensive lineman at this current moment, so he's going to go 10 to the Jets, who desperately need protection for Aaron Rodgers, Breece Hall, basically that whole offense. Don't disappoint Aaron Rodgers. At 11, we have the Vikings. As we see for the Vikings here, their top 3 edges on their team are going to be free agents this offseason, including their sack leader in Danielle Hunter, Marcus Davenport, and DJ Wonnum. So with all that information, I think this is a pretty easy pick. I'm going to lean edge with this one, and I'm going to give them Jared Verse, my second edge, or that's drafted, but in real life, I could argue for him to be my number 1 edge in this class. At 12, we have the Broncos. I think this could be a couple of things. I could see interior defensive line with either Johnny Newton, Byron Murphy, T'Vondre Sweat, maybe if he goes this high, or even Chris Jenkins if he ends up going this high. I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but you never really know. Also, and the position I'm most likely going to go here is corner. Terrion Arnold is looking like he's going to be the first corner off the board at this point. I do like Nate Wiggins probably a little bit more as my cornerback 1 at this point, but the way it's looking is that Terrion Arnold will be the first one off the board. I'm going to give him to the Broncos at 12. At 13, we have the Raiders. Offensive line, most likely. It looks like they are going to roll with Aiden O'Connell into next season as their starting quarterback, which probably is not great for Devontae Adams, but he could also find a new home. We don't really know, even though he does like Antonio Pierce. I think we're going offensive tackle. I'm going my third tackle in this draft class. It's going to be Talisi Fuega out of Oregon State. He has been a bit of a riser in this draft class where I've seen him as high. Honestly, I've seen him as high as, 9 to the Bears, maybe even 8 to the Falcons. I've seen him high. I like Talisi Fuega. Overall, he might, out of Joe Alt and Olu-Fashanu, there's a pretty good chance that he ends up having the best rookie season out of all 3 of them. Might be a bit of a stretch, but that's just my opinion. At 14, we have the Saints. Obviously me as a Saints fan, I'm trying to make sure I get this one right. This could be a lot of things, to be honest. The Saints have a lot of holes on their team. Could be quarterback. None of these guys are exciting me right here. Could be wide receiver. To be honest, none of these guys are exciting me right here. I think if they pick wide receiver, if it's not MHJ, if it's not Malik Nabers, if it's not Rome Odunze, don't really want him there at 14. No tight end unless it's Brock Bowers, who I've seen fall to them in some mock drafts. I think at the end of the day, this is either tackle or edge. In my opinion, maybe a tad bit early for Laiatu Latu considering his injury history. So I'm going to lean tackle between J.C. Latham and Amarius Mims. And I think I'm going to give them J.C. Latham out of Alabama. I think I've done this the last couple of times as well. But overall, it should be the right pick for the Saints at 14. Ryan Ramczyk career is most likely in jeopardy with his knee problems. Could retire at the end of next season, hopefully longer. As a Saints fan, personally, I want to see him play as long as he can until he can't. But, yeah, injury problems for Ryan Ramczyk. We do need to get a younger guy in there. And really, if it's Amarius Mims or J.C. Latham, either of them, I really would not have a problem. So I have J.C. Latham going to the Saints at 14. At 15, we have the Colts. Their top need is most likely edge, and if Jared Verse did fall to 15, this would be the pick. But because the best edge available is Laiatu Latu, and I don't really consider him, I mean, I could see him go like 19 to the Rams, 22 to the Eagles. I don't really consider him going this high at 15 because, like I said earlier, his injury history. He had to medically retire from football while at Washington. So at 15, I'm going to give them my personal cornerback one, and Nate Wiggins. 6'4", freakishly long arms, insane hustle player. It's just cool to see a cornerback prospect like him never give up on a play. There is this one clip of him. It was a game-breaking play. I think it was either a run or it was a short pass that went for a long run afterwards. And Nate Wiggins tracked him all the way down to the goal line, punched the ball out, and it was a touchback. I'll try to find it right now if I can. Got it right here. It is going to be against North Carolina, a game earlier this season. Just amazing hustle play from Nate Wiggins. Down 7-0. Could have extended the lead. And it blacked out a little bit. But as you see, he was able to knock the ball out at the very last second and prevent a touchdown. So just that showing his hustle. And overall, it's one of the reasons why he's my cornerback one. Really liked Nate Wiggins out of Clemson, and I expect him to have an amazing NFL career. Height, weight, speed, demon. Say it basically every video, but it's just true. At 16, we have the Seahawks. This could be a couple of things. Could see tackle, could see interior offensive lineman. Troy Fautanu, Jackson Powers Johnson, if I could find him. I guess he'd be in center. Jackson Powers Johnson, who I'm going to have in my first round. Yeah, basically between him and Troy Fautanu. Yeah, I mean, the Seahawks could go a couple of places at 16. Sorry for the cut that time. 16, I went Troy Fautanu. Talked about how, while he did play tackle at Washington, he probably does end up projecting to more of a guard when he does get drafted into the NFL. And also, Washington Husky to Seattle Seahawk. It is not a long drive. And at 17, I went Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. He is definitely somebody who has risen up the draft boards and has probably solidified himself as a top 24 pick, I would say. Overall, an amazing Senior Bowl. He had an amazing Senior Bowl, week in general. And that is probably what has mostly boosted him up into my top 20 players selected. At 18, we have the Bengals. I think this is offensive tackle or wide receiver or cornerback. Don't really think wide receiver here. Brian Thomas Jr. possibly. Tackle is what I'm probably going to be leaning to most with Amarius Mims. But could also see cornerback. We have not seen a corner, it's been like 3 picks, but only 2 cornerbacks off the board so far, so they really have a pick of many. Kuli McKinstry, Cooper DeJean, Quinion Mitchell, even Kamari Lassiter, even though probably at this point more of a second-round pick, and maybe even Ennis Rakestraw, who I've been watching a lot more recently and can probably see him as a future first-round pick. At 18, though, I'm going to give them tackle. I'm going to give them Amarius Mims here out of Georgia. Their number one need, I'd say, is 100% tackle. They are going to have some of their top wide receivers leaving free agency, but This is a deep wide receiver class where maybe they don't have to take one in the first round, or at least at 18. Coleman, Thomas Jr., Mitchell, Leggett, McConkey, Worthy, Troy Franklin, Malachi Corley is an underrated prospect I like a lot. Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan, Devontae Walker, Roman Wilson, probably not so much Johnny Wilson. All of those guys, I mean, most of those guys, at least the last couple of guys, could end up being third-round picks. And you could get a first-round potential player in the third round. And I think that's probably the way they're going to end up going. So taking tackle with the first round, and then the second and third round, they could look at wide receiver in one of those picks. At 19, we have the Rams. The Rams are definitely an interesting team. First things first, their defensive backs depth and overall play, not amazing. So that is definitely one place they can go. So yeah, I could see cornerback. Could also see offensive tackle here possibly. Don't know how high these guys go. Suamataia, Jordan Morgan, and Patrick Paul are probably the three possible players that could still go in this draft class, because we have gotten a couple tackles so far. Fuaga, Fautanu, Guyton, and Mims. So it's probably between edge and maybe Laiatu Latu, another guy who would stay in the similar area. UCLA, Rams, both in LA. We could also see, so yeah, it's going to be tackle or edge for me, or cornerback like I mentioned before. Yeah, it's probably going to be cornerback and edge actually. McKinstry, I mean, it's hard to pass up on a talent like him. Same thing with Quinyon Mitchell. But at the end of the day, I'm going to give them edge here. I'm going to give them Laiatu Latu at a UCLA, keeping him local, just like Troy Fautanu from Washington. They're going to ignore his injury history, his injury past, and they're going to look at that last year at UCLA and saw how amazing he was. Without those injuries, Laiatu Latu is probably, or at worst, a top 11 pick. At worst, actually. Let me relax. At worst, top 13 pick. Don't really see him falling past, I guess, the Saints at 14, so top 14 pick. But if he didn't have any of those injury problems, he could probably easily a top 14 pick. But slid him down the board a little bit. The Rams are able to snag him at 19. And if we see the same Laiatu Latu we saw last year, he could have an amazing rookie season. At 20, we have the Steelers. This is cornerback all day for me. Could also see tackle, but I'm going to lean cornerback, especially because their top prospects, Amarius Mims, Tyler Guyton, Troy Fautanu, Latham. We also have Fashanu, and all are all off the board. So if you were planning to go tackle, you are no longer planning to go tackle, unless they want Jordan Morgan. But I'm going to give them cornerback. I'm going to give them Quinyon Mitchell. Almost wrongly selected the player there. I do not wish to restart my sim. I'm going to give them Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. Right now, I think he is... Is he easily the third cornerback taken off the board? I mean, I've seen him go first cornerback off the board many times. For many draft analysts, him and Terran Arnold are the top two prospects in this draft, where I've seen Khalid McKinstry and Cooper DeJean drop into the 20s. Quinyon Mitchell is a prospect I've loved for a long time. I mean, I put him in my first round way before the other draft analysts have, so kind of proud of myself for that one. But I love him as a prospect. The Steelers will love him as well. Putting him next to Joey Porter Jr., that will be an elite cornerback tandem for the future. At 21, we have the Dolphins. Pretty easy. We're going Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon. Said he was going to get into the first round. I wasn't lying. Don't think he drops past the Dolphins at 21. I could also see him go 16 to the Seahawks as well. Maybe if they prefer Graham Barton, I could see him go to the Dolphins at 21. But I think Jackson Powers Johnson is probably the right pick at this moment. At 22, we have the Eagles. I think I'm also going to be giving them cornerback here. With so much talent on the board right now, and McKinstry, DeJean, and Ennis Rakestraw, I feel like it has to be the pick. People might say that they have depth or they have good enough players, but when you think about it, Darius Slay is, how old is Darius Slay? 33 years old, so barely any time left in the NFL. James Bradbury is washed. I mean, that's the kindest way I can put it. Don't really know how else to say it. And Keely Ringo and Eli Ricks, while they are young talents, they haven't really showed anything yet. So I'm going to go corner. I'm going to go Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama, getting more young cornerback depth in there. Maybe he fits the Vic Fangio system. I just think it's an easy pick in my opinion. Tackle is another place to go, but I think overall their number one selection or number one option should definitely be cornerback. At least what they're looking at right now. 23, we have the Texans. I think this is most likely interior defensive line. Don't see wide receiver here. Brian Thomas Jr. is a great prospect, but that is, with all the interior defensive linemen left on the board, none of them have been taken yet. I think it has to be the pick. It's going to be Johnny Newton, Byron Murphy, or T'Vondre Sweat. I'm going to give them Byron Murphy, though, out of Texas. I think right now, has he separated himself as the number one interior defensive lineman? Maybe not. I think Johnny Newton is still in that conversation, but at least in my opinion, he's the number one guy. At 24, we have the Cowboys. Interior defensive line or wide receiver is most likely the right pick. Graham Barton right here seems like an easy selection. I could also see Brian Thomas Jr. possibly. Kind of looking for a spot for Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, obviously 32 to the Chiefs if he's still available. Yeah, I think I'm going to go interior defensive line with this one. Probably going to end up going Graham Barton out of Duke. I think it's an easy pick. It's their number one need. They drafted an interior defensive line or interior offensive lineman last year in Trey Smith, and he has turned into one of the best linemen in all of football. And when they drafted him, people thought it as a little bit of a reach. And maybe people think the same thing about Barton. But if this Cowboys know one thing, it's not winning, but it's drafting good players. Micah Parsons, Trey Smith, and now Graham Barton. Let's see if it works out for them. At 25, we have the Packers. I think this should pretty easily be cornerback. I'm going to give them, maybe safety. Cameron Kitchens, Tyler Nubin, some guys you could maybe put in the first round, but I'm going to give them cornerback. It's going to be Cooper DeJean out of Iowa. And if you want Cooper DeJean play your safety, then he can. I think in the NFL, he most likely will translate into a boundary cornerback. But in college, he's played the nickel, he's played safety, he's returned punts and kicks, he's played boundary as well. He could really do everything. But when it all comes down to it, he most likely will end up playing boundary for the Packers, unless they need him to play safety. At 26, we have the Buccaneers, one of the hardest teams to draft for in this draft class, in my opinion. Could see interior defensive linemen to pair with Vita Vea. Looking at Johnny Newton, T'Vondre Sweat, Chris Jenkins maybe. Could also see edge. They definitely need edge. Chop Robinson, Chris Braswell, Braylon Trice. I think there's a couple of places they can go here at 26. I'm probably going to lean edge with this pick. Braylon Trice is somebody I've wanted to get into the first round for the longest time. I think it's going to be right now, honestly. Yeah, I'm probably between Braylon Trice or Johnny Newton. And I think at the end of the day, I'm going to give them Braylon Trice out of Washington. He led FBS, or I guess the whole country if you want to call it. He led the whole country in pressure this year. I think there was one game he had a crazy stat of, how many pressures was it? Was it 16 pressures in one game? Didn't get 16 sacks, but 16 pressures in one game is insane. I'm going to try to fact check that real quick. Here, Sports Illustrated says 80 pressures in 2023. Couldn't really get the exact stat, but a pressure rate over 20% is simply insane. So he's going to be an amazing prospect. They do need to get a new edge in there. Joy Tryon Shoyinka is not the guy. And hopefully Braylon Trice is. And I'm very glad I was able to get him in the first round in my mock draft. At 27, we have the Cardinals. I think with their first pick of Marvin Harrison Jr., this probably has to be tackle, maybe cornerback as well. Kingsley Suamataia and Jordan Morgan are the two guys standing out to me most. I think I'm going to give them Jordan Morgan, even though he does project a little bit more as a guard. But they could also use guard as well. So, hey, Let's take Jordan Morgan out of Arizona. High, very, very, very high potential guy. Him and Fashanu are probably the low floor, high potential guys, even though Fashanu has an okay floor. While we have guys like Graham Barton Joe Alt, Talisi Fuega, who are more of high floor guys who might still have good potential, but will probably come in right away and be a good starting tackle, which I think Jordan Morgan will do for the Arizona Cardinals. At 28, we have the Bills. Pretty simple. We're going to give them wide receiver here. And with Brian Thomas still on the board, I think it's an easy pick for them at 28. Gabe Davis, very, very, very likely that he'll be gone this offseason. There's no way the Bills pay him. That'd be crazy. We're going to go Brian Thomas Jr. here out of LSU. A guy who could end up going at 15 or 14. It's a steal for the Bills, and he should be an instantly impact for the Bills. At 29, we have the Lions. This is probably going to be edge, maybe. I mean, not too many great edges left on this board. Chop Robinson and Chris Braswell, probably the ones who are standing out to be most. Could give them Chop. Could also most likely look at cornerback. And a Rakestraw here would be interesting. Might want to get him into my first round. Kamari Lassiter, maybe, maybe not. Or wide receiver was the last position I had looking at for them. Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Legette, probably the two guys I'm looking at most to get into this first round. Maybe Troy Franklin as well. But I think I'm going to give them corner. This is going to be Ennis Rakestraw Jr. out of Missouri. Glad I was able to get him into my first round. He's another guy, or at least in my opinion, has risen up the boards a lot. And there's a lot to like about him, too. So, makes it a lot better. At 30, we have the Baltimore Ravens. I guess I should probably expand a little bit more on what there is to like about Ennis Rakestraw Jr. Amazing hip movement. And just like Cooper DeJean, Rakestraw has a lot of versatility where he can play more than just the boundary. I really like him as a prospect, and I'm glad I was able to get him into the first round. And I think he'll also be utilized amazingly with Dan Campbell in that Lions defense. At 30, though, we have the Ravens. Couple places for the Ravens here on my list. Cornerback, wide receiver, interior defensive lineman, and edge. I think at this point, cornerback most likely not the best place to go. Don't think Kamari Lassiter gets into the first round. I think we're done with cornerbacks in this draft. Wide receiver, maybe. I mean, Keon Coleman, A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Legette. There are a lot of wide receivers left for them to take. Then interior lineman, T'Vondre Sweat. I did not click on that. T'Vondre Sweat, Johnny Newton, just two main guys. Chris Jenkins as well, if they prefer him. And last but not least, edge, where it's probably just Chop Robinson and Chris Braswell. I think I'm going to give them interior defensive lineman. It's going to be Johnny Newton here, out of Illinois. Bit undersized for the interior defensive lineman position, but what you can't deny is production, and that's all he did last year. Honestly, I know I do have him at 30, which is a lot lower than what I've had him earlier this season. You know, I've had him mocked to the Chargers at like 8, 9, places like that. I've seen people drop Johnny Newton, not 100% sure why, but I guess I'm just following suit. I'm dropping Johnny Newton as well. So, kind of just contradicting myself right there. But at 31, we do have the Super Bowl losing San Francisco 49ers. Probably tackle. I think this is an easy pick. Most likely anything on that offensive line. Kingsley Suamataia would be a great pick for them. That's probably the pick I'm going here. Don't really think Cooper Beebe sneaks into the first round. And maybe Zach Frazier, but I doubt it. I'm going to give them Kingsley Suamataia out of BYU. And at 32, the Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs, have a pick of many. They're going to go wide receiver here, and they have so many options. Keon Coleman, A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Legette, even Ladd McConkey or Xavier Worthy. I mean, any of these top, Corley, Franklin, Worthy, McConkey, Leggett, Mitchell, and Coleman. Any of these top 7 guys can go, so it's really just my opinion on who the best guy for the Chiefs is. And I'm going to go speedster here. I'm going to give them Troy Franklin here out of Oregon. So here's the mock draft. I'm pretty proud of this one. I think this is probably our best one yet. Couple of surprises in this mock draft, fallers, risers, things I should probably say. We have, honestly, nothing too crazy. Maybe Fautano at 16 is a tad bit high. Maybe Jackson Powers Johnson at 21 is a tad bit high. Maybe you're a Kool-Aid McKinstry fan and you think that him at 22 is too low. I could argue that. Braylon Trice, I love him as a prospect, but not too many guys have him as a first-round guy. Graham Barton might be a tad bit high. Other than that, I think this was a great mock draft, and the slipping of Johnny Newton could also be notable. So yeah, thanks for watching this mock drafts. I thought this was one of our best for sure, if not our best, or the best. Don't really know how to put that one. But yeah, thanks for watching this mock draft. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and if you have any video ideas for me surrounding, it's mostly NFL and NBA, but college football, college basketball as well, go into the link in the description, go to the Google Forms, submit your video ideas, and yeah, if you submit it, there's like 100% chance I'll do it. Maybe 99.9 if I don't check, but I promise you I will. Thanks for watching this video, and see you next time. Peace.